Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the eMLB Insider Podcast. My name is AnjouPays, and with me, as always, is my co-host JR. How you doing tonight?
Pretty good, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Baseball is officially back. Both of our teams, as it currently stands, are undefeated and have a chance to go 162-0, with my Cardinals beating the Pirates on opening day and the Reds beating the Braves as well later that night. So we're a couple of happy fans right now. I know not everyone's happy fan. I mean, half the teams have to lose, right?
Yeah, I mean, come on. We gotta enjoy it while we can. You gotta celebrate the wins.
Yeah, exactly. And I was getting emotional as a Cardinals fan watching the whole opening ceremony with Albert Pujols getting introduced as a member of the Cardinals yet again. It was so cool to see him in a Cardinals uniform. He may not have gotten a hit, but it was just really cool to see him back in that lineup. Looking forward to seeing him throughout this season with him and Yachty saying they're going to hang it up after this year. So it's going to be an emotional year for us Cardinals fans for sure.
Yeah, I have a feeling you guys are gonna have a few different emotional roller coasters there as the season goes on.
And I'm just going to be realistic. I know they keep saying, obviously, their goal is to win the World Series. I don't know if we have the team to win the World Series, but man, wouldn't it be fantastic if we sent them out that way?
That would be a heck of a way to go out. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. But enough about the real life MLB. We are here to talk about the eMLB, and we are in the middle of the 2025 season. We're about to hit the All-Star break after this sim, but we've also got the eMLB first player draft coming up. And if you haven't tuned into a stream on FKN Commish LB Twitch channel, uh, this is the Twitch stream to view. This is probably the biggest event of our season. A lot of production goes into this, a lot of pomp and circumstance, and it is absolutely a blast, especially this year with so many community created players joining the ranks, waiting for their name to be called. It's got that air of an actual real life draft where you have created a player and you're wondering what team's gonna want your player the most. I think this draft might be the most anticipated draft that we've ever had.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people in that chat in the Twitch feed. They're going to be really anxious to see where they're going to go. We've the first couple of times we've gone through this draft. You and I have been around since this started back up. It's mostly been just us GMs in there with
Yep.
maybe a couple of kind of hardcore community created player fans who were looking to see where their guy went. I think we're going to have a lot this time around, as you mentioned. So it should make for an even more fun and special night.
Absolutely. So please tune in this Wednesday, April 13th at, is it 7 p.m. Eastern, I believe, or
I,
8
I
p.m.?
believe it's 7 p.m.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
because we have to go around the actual OOTP streams.
yeah.
Whoops, sorry, messed up my lightning there. So yeah, we have to go around that, but definitely tune into that. It's a lot of fun. It's also going to be a multi-night event. It's not going to be just one night where this is streamed. I think he usually streams the first 5 rounds, and then the rest of them are done offline. I think it depends on how his schedule is this year. I don't think he's announced anything past the first round, so we'll see what that happens there. But definitely tune into the first round. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if you have a community created player in the universe, definitely tune in to see where your player ends up. It might be on one of our teams. We might pick you up. Who knows? But more to come on that. We will have a special edition of the podcast focused just on the draft. We're not sure yet, based on scheduling, if we're going to be able to do a preview or a recap. But there will be a special edition of our podcast coming out for the draft, as well as we've started doing recording some special editions where we do some interviews with some of the GMs. So as always, if you are interested in doing an interview, whether you're a GM or a community created player, especially community created players, if you want to get interviewed after you get drafted, so we can talk about where you got drafted and how you see your player's future going, we would love to have you on, and we'll do some special one-off interview podcasts as well. So stay tuned for those. Make sure you're subscribed to this YouTube channel if you are not. Definitely keep up with everything that's going on in eMLB. But without further ado, let's get into what has happened in the last 2 weeks of baseball in the eMLB universe. We are now on July 7th, leading up into the All-Star break, and I'm just gonna say this sim was quite crazy. We had a lot of top teams having a hard time getting some wins this sim. But going around the league, we've got Boston still in first in the AL East at 51-31, with Tampa Bay close behind with 3.5 games back. Detroit is still holding a 3.5 game lead over Chicago in the AL Central. Texas Rangers have 2.5 lead over the Angels in the AL West, with the Astros falling off just a little bit. The Nationals have regained their lead on the NL East. That division has been crazy this year. The Mets 1 game behind, the Phillies 2 games behind. My Cardinals are still maintaining our lead in the NL Central, but we're no longer being chased by the Brewers directly. We've got the Cubs flipping up in the second place over the Brewers by half a game. And the NL West, the Padres have a comfortable 7-game lead over the Arizona Diamondbacks, the only team to have a lead of more than 3 games. So as we look at this, with a bunch of teams struggled this sim, namely the Padres, the Rangers, the Tigers had a little bit of a struggle. 3 top teams in their division struggling, and their lead in their division narrowing a little bit. Do you think this is going to lead into more crazy finishes this year, or is this just like a small thing that they're going to fix pretty easily?
I think we're going to have some really crazy finishes as we come down to the wire. And I think it really is because you have, in several of these divisions, you have teams that either they're kind of at the top of their league and they're all in the same division, or they're kind of at the middle of their league and they're all in the same division. You look at the AL East, you mentioned, the Red Sox are the only team with 50 plus wins so far, but you have the Rays and the Orioles who have shown that, they can easily be considered the class of the AL. And then, you mentioned the NL East. There's a lot of teams in there that I don't know that I would pick any of those teams as, a real strong contender to win a World Series per se, but they're all pretty tightly packed. And I can't imagine really any team running away with that. So I think you're going to see a lot of these divisions really come down to the wire, which means the wild cards are going to come down to the wire in most cases as well.
Absolutely. And for those of you that are new to the eMLB, we have not done expanded playoffs like the real life MLB does. So we only do have 2 wildcard teams that will be making it this year. And actually, we can start talking about the wildcard race because we are in the beginning parts of July. So let me give a little bit of a highlight to that. So currently in the AL, the top wildcard spot is held by the Tampa Bay Rays, followed by the Angels. Those are the 2 in the wildcard position right now. The White Sox are a half game back of the Angels. The Orioles are 1 game back. Astros are 2 games back. And then we jump to the Twins down at 6 games back. And then over in the wild card, the Cubs have actually taken over the top wild card spot out of nowhere. I didn't actually not think that they had taken that many wins recently, but here they are. The Cubs and the Brewers have the 2 wild card spots, both from the NL Central, followed very closely by the Mets by a half a game under the Brewers, Phillies a game and a half of the Brewers, Diamondbacks 3, Pirates 3.5, Rockies 4.5. There's a lot of teams up there within 4.5 games of that wild card, so the NL wild card could be something to watch. And speaking of those Pirates, Cody made it very clear in our Discord that we better be watching out for those Pirates. After their, let's just say, horrific start, they're probably one of the strongest teams in baseball recently. They have jumped up the standings. They are now just around 500. They're only 1 game under 500 after starting 13. I think they were 13 games under 500 at one point.
Yeah.
So they've definitely turned their season around. They're within striking distance of a wild card now, all of a sudden in July. So this, not only will this be an interesting wildcard race, but this could put together a lot of tight storylines for trade deadline talks, because if that many teams are in reach within a wildcard spot, we might see a flurry of moves by the trade deadline.
We could see a flurry of moves, or by the same token, that could stall some movement as well with so many teams being involved in it. You might see a lot of teams trying to add to what they have, or just not being sure whether to add or to subtract and kind of staying pat. That's always kind of something that could go either way when you talk about the trade deadline and whether teams are in it or out of it or not, and especially in the National League where early on, I think a lot of us felt like your Cardinals were kind of, head and shoulders as the favorite to make it the World Series. And they probably are still the favorite to make it to the World Series out of the National League. I think, objectively, they probably are the favorite, but I don't think it's as dominating a favorite as we would have thought early on. So if you are one of those teams, you sneak into the playoffs, you just never know. Whereas in the American League, right now you mentioned the Rays and the Angels have the wild card spots. Those are two teams heading into this season. We thought, we're definitely favorites to make it the World Series. And they're going to be fighting and clawing just to make it in the postseason.
Yeah, that's true. Now I know. So just for for all you guys watching, we actually plan out how we're gonna talk through this podcast ahead of time. But I think I need to change up the order here because we were just talking about some trade rumors, like what teams could be making moves before the deadline. We were going to talk about some trade rumors later in the podcast, but I think this is a good time to talk about it now.
Yeah.
Because to your point, if there are a lot of teams that are in contention, that may drive the price up for the players that the teams that are selling are looking to move. And there have been multiple teams that have already made their intentions known that they're going to be looking for the future and they are going to be selling at the trade deadline. And the three main teams that have made that claim are the Atlanta Braves, Minnesota Twins, and Seattle Mariners. And the Braves probably have some of the most intriguing trade chips on the market right now. You have Freddie Freeman, who's coming up on the end of his deal, still a very good first baseman at 33 years old. You've got a lot of pitching. Not only do they have a lot of pitching at the major leagues, they have a lot of young pitching that's almost ready to go. So they have the depth there to start moving some of those pieces. Twins have some pieces that they're probably looking to move. They're more looking at maybe getting younger. They don't have a lot of superstars, but they definitely have some role players that can make a difference on some of these contending teams that they could move. And then the Mariners have we know them for their offense. There's no way they're going to be moving anyone like Pedro Serrano or Eric Kelly, but they could move some like the Twins, move some role player pieces for some prospects back, try to get a little bit younger. But if there's a lot of teams vying for these players from these teams, you might see some teams willing to overpay to make sure that they get them and not one of their rivals.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Braves, and that's one of those slots where I believe we've heard rumors that AJ Mentor is the type of guy that could be looked at to move. Now,
Solid guy at the
he's
bullpen.
a solid guy at the back end of the bullpen, and that's an area that all kinds of contending teams always look to improve on is to upgrade their bullpen. So that could turn into a real bidding war.
Yeah, I'm raising my hand. I'm actually one of the teams. It's funny. I was looking at my bullpen today. Literally, literally, of my, I think I have I have 8 pieces in my bullpen. 3 of them have above a 1 WAR, and the rest of them have either like 0.3 or below or negative. I'm just like, well, I can't just have 3 bullpen pieces. So maybe some rumors going into that. We have Kansas City has also said that they're willing to listen to anyone. Not sure if that means that they're completely selling or rebuilding. Right now, they're sitting 14 games back in the Central, so you kind of think they're probably on the selling side. They haven't outright said that they're selling, but they said that they're willing to listen to anyone, so they might also be a team looking to sell. Cleveland might be looking to sell sometime soon. Your Reds have already made a couple of deals. Maybe you're looking to make some more moves.
Yeah, there's definitely some talk that closer Curtis Taylor could be on the move here in the next few days. So, he's a guy. He's pitched pretty well for me. But again, when you're a team in last place, having a veteran closer is something that you definitely don't need as much as somebody else will if you can get some decent prospect pieces back for him. And unfortunately, in my situation too, money is an issue in terms of where our budget's at. So that can be a help from my standpoint as well. But yeah, Curtis Taylor could be on the move there, and there's a lot of other pieces that I've got available that I'm hoping teams may come after.
Yeah, I know. For in terms of rumors, I can mainly speak to myself because I'm the Cardinals GM, so I know what I'm doing. I will say the Cardinals are definitely looking to make some moves at the trade deadline. You've heard me talk before about how our offense took a nosedive in May, and we ended up with a horrible record in May as a result. We've picked it up recently, so we've kind of turned around our horrible month. We're not as good as we were at the beginning of the year, but we're turning it around. But maybe looking to improve some offense. Maybe, like I mentioned, looking to improve our bullpen. So who knows what's going to happen there. Another team that's rumored to start moving some players is Arizona. One of the teams that we thought was going to be a playoff contender, sitting at 500 right now. at 42 and 42. They've made known that they're starting to take note of some players that they might want to move. None of their star players, like obviously they're not going to be moving on for someone like Aaron Cross, but they have made known that they're willing to talk some of their other, not necessarily like role players. Some of their starters are also on the block. So I don't know if you would call Arizona rebuilding. Maybe they're trying to retool for another run next year. Do you think they can still contend this year, or is this something that they're looking for next year?
Before the last sim, I would have said that they're pretty far out of it, trying to get back in it. But again, with the way the Padres have played here lately, and knowing that when you look at that Arizona roster, I mean, there's a lot of talent there, and I think we would all agree that they've underperformed quite a bit to be here at the 500 mark at this point in the season. They're one of those teams that early on you just kind of felt like, oh, the Diamondbacks are off to a little bit of a slow start here, and they're going to kind of kick it into high gear, but they haven't really gone to that second level of really getting back in it, despite the fact that again you look up and down that roster and they've got a lot of talent there. So I think their GM Aaron Silence is definitely in that kind of awkward spot of do we take some of these assets that we have, some strong pitching, some strong hitting that we could potentially sell off and get some prospects in return for, or do we address a couple of holes that we feel like we have and count on the Trevor Bauers and the Aaron Crosses and those guys to really kick it in like they have in the past and make yet another run.
Yeah, another team you can make that argument for, the Pittsburgh Pirates, another team that we thought was that they're defending division champions as well, and they are underperforming, but they're also in that awkward. They've already sold off a couple pieces that we were like,
Yeah.
is this too early for them to be doing that? And I mean, it seems to have worked. They've definitely turned things around recently, and you have to wonder, are they going to make another move to try to get back in this race and make it even harder for teams? I think this is setting up to be a very interesting playoff race down the stretch. If you got teams like the Pirates and the Diamondbacks, who we thought were going to be at the top because of their talent, start figuring it out and competing with the teams that have been performing well, there's going to be a lot of teams fighting for that top spot. We may not have a 100-game winner this year as a result
Yeah.
because of this is something I love. It's a competitive league right now. It is not something where you see like teams are definitely going to hit 100 wins. This is some competing baseball right now, and it's making things exciting.
Well, and I think one of the examples of that was, my Reds team, couple weeks ago in terms of sim time, was around. At one point had the third worst record in the league, pretty close to that, and then all of a sudden went on a tear of winning 8 straight games, and I think we might have won 10 out of 12 or 10 out of 13 during that span. So even the teams that you look at that are down a little bit can be very effective and can get back in there. The Pirates are a good example of, they may not even need to make any trades to bolster their team. They've got a lot of young talent, both at the major league level and right below, that just those guys maturing and maybe getting somebody up from the farm to give them a boost is all they're going to need potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And one team that was off to a bad start has really turned it on lately and has already made a splash in the trade market. In fact, there were 3 trades that happened in this last 2 weeks. All 3 of them included one specific team, and that is the Baltimore Orioles. They were one of the big surprises out of the gate, starting off very slow, pretty much near the bottom of the AL, but they have come on very strong lately. They were actually off to such a slow start that we noted earlier that there were rumors that they were shopping around star third baseman Buster Bluth. But now they are right in the thick of this, not only wildcard race, but division race as well. 6 games out, that's not unattainable. And you have to think they're not going to be moving Bluth anymore. They're probably going to try to keep on to him. In fact, they've made 3 trades to try to bolster their roster and help them in this run. Now, they're not going to be they're not star names. They're names that fill needs, and that's what Baltimore was looking to do. They've got the stars in Bluth, in Spence, in Knight. They need the players to fill the weak spots, And let me pull up the. I'm pulling up the transactions right now. So as you can see at the top here, 3 straight trades for Baltimore. The first one we're going to talk about is from the San Diego Padres for straight cash, $8 million. And the reason why, just a little bit of a side note, San Diego Padres were recently hit with a fine for an illegal extension that they offered. So I can't remember which player it was specifically,
It was
but
Mackenzie Gore.
Mackenzie Gore. Okay, yeah. So an illegal extension to Mackenzie Gore. So they were hit with a fine to adjust the contract to fit within the parameters of the league. As a result, San Diego put on the trade block that they're willing to basically sell their players. It's not. This isn't a trade. This is you're buying players from the Padres at this point, so that Padres can try to get some of that cash back. So Baltimore sent $8 million in cash to the Padres and received back Yordis Valdez and Sidney Pimentel, 2 middle infielders. Both of them at the time were at the AAA level, and apparently they still are. So just getting some depth from the Orioles there in case this you think this might be in reaction to, oh no, we lost Spence at the beginning of the year, that's why we got off to a slow start, we need someone to fill in the void if he goes down again.
It could be. I found that trade interesting. Obviously, when you see $8 million exchange hands, that's an eye popping number. For Steve Kim, the GM of the Padres, he had been shopping Pimentel for quite a while. So I'm sure being able to kind of include him in that deal for the cash made sense. It did make me scratch my head just a little bit from the Baltimore perspective, just from the standpoint that they're pretty similar players. They're both guys that have really great gloves. Really play really great defense, but really light bats, not much from the hitting side. So it surprises me a little bit that they would take 2 very similar players in that kind of deal. But again, to your point, it gives them some flexibility on the infield, and you got 2 guys who at the very least can give you some great defense.
Yeah, they can definitely be a serviceable fill-in for a player. They're not going to be the main people you build your infield around, but they're definitely people that can fill a role if someone's injured or someone needs a day off for sure.
Yeah.
Next trade they acquired left fielder Jahmai Jones from the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim for pitching prospect Josh Girdley. So Jahmai is at the major league level for the Baltimore Orioles. Let me see if they've got them listed in the starting lineup at all. He is not in the starting lineup. So he is a backup outfielder for them. Let's see if he's. No, he is not in either of the lineups for the Orioles. So he's filling a backup role as an outfielder there. Oh, he was just traded, so he's still technically on DFA. He's still designated for assignment right now.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Did the Orioles designate him for assignment? Because if they did that, that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, he probably just hasn't been placed.
No, he just hasn't been placed on a roster yet. Okay, so let's talk about what we think his role's going to be, because we can't see what his role has been. So what do you think his role is going to be in that outfield? Keeping in mind that they just put Ray Ornelas on the injured list. He's not going to be out for very long. It's a 7-day injured list. So what do you think Jahmai Jones is going to fill?
Yeah, they've got Verdugo in left, so that they've got him there. Khalil Lee is somebody that obviously they feel pretty good about. They really like his bat. I believe they just recently extended him for a contract. So, Jones, the good thing with him is he's a pretty versatile outfielder. He can play some center field. He plays really great left field. I actually can play even a little bit of second base, in a pinch. So, he's somebody that can give them some versatility there. He's had some, some decent years. He originally finished second in the Rookie of the Year voting back in 2020, and then just kind of, I think, got lost in the shuffle maybe a little bit with the Angels. Had a decent year last year, but he's kind of like your classic guy who can really be a solid 4th outfielder for them. Make some starts here and there. maybe spend some time, at DH at different points. So I think it's a good quality addition. Girdley, the pitcher they gave up, he was kind of down in their pecking order in terms of a pitching prospect. I think he can be a starter, but it seemed like they had him in a relief role in a AAA. So, they definitely kind of saw him a little bit down the way in terms of their prospect depth chart. So I think it's a pretty a solid deal on both sides.
I think one thing that you and I overlooked is we were focusing on how can they impact a lineup, these players that they're added. But you mentioned something about their shortstops that they got from San Diego about them being high defensive players. I'm looking at their team stats right now. They are 13th in the American League in zone rating defensively. So, and Khalil Lee is a pretty good defensive player. Or not Khalil Lee, Jahmai Jones. Jahmai Jones is a pretty good defensive player. And maybe they're looking to improve that defense as they see that as a weak spot that they need to improve on if they're going to keep making this run. So maybe that's the motivation behind it.
He won the Gold Glove in left field last year in the AL. So, he definitely can come in, and give them a boost there. From that standpoint, again, you got Verdugo in left right now, but you can always move him around a little bit to get the Jones in there a little bit more.
Yeah, he can play left, he can play right. You can put him at the designated hitter. Adds that versatility to the Orioles. And then their last trade, as I pull it back up here, they got pitcher Connor Siebold from the Kansas City Royals in exchange for pitchers Matt McClendon and Tim Dover. So basically a trade for a well-established pitcher in Siebold for a little bit of a younger pitcher in McClendon, who was not really performing that well for Baltimore this year. And also kind of like one of those like shot in the dark prospects. Not someone you see on the top prospect board, but maybe he has some capabilities of developing in Dover. So I think this is a classic case of Baltimore wants to reestablish their pitching rotation, get some proven veteran in there, while Kansas City is just looking to get younger.
Yeah, for sure. Heading into this year, I think, Baltimore really looked at McClendon as somebody that they were going to really count on to kind of, maybe be in that second or third slot behind Ethan Knight. And to your point, he's just really struggled all season. He ended up getting shipped to AAA. He's still got the potential to turn out to be a decent arm, but when you're trying to get into a pennant chase, the Orioles really needed another arm. Jim Reed has stepped up behind Knight, so they've got a great 1-2 combination there. But Siebold, if he can come in, pitch some of those solid innings like he has for Kansas City, and really kind of stabilize that third spot in the rotation, that'll really help out Baltimore as they look to track down the Orioles track down the Red Sox and the Rays.
Yeah, absolutely. They're, like I said at the beginning, these are not star names that you're seeing moving to Baltimore, but these are pieces that Baltimore views as filling the holes that they need to fill in order to keep their ship afloat and keep them rising up in the rankings, in the standings. So I'd say the Baltimore Orioles are making some good moves to address needs, and we'll see if any of their rivals make a bigger splash to counter. So we'll see if, because the Rays recently traded for catcher Stevenson from the Reds, so they've made a move. Baltimore's now made some moves. Let's see what the Red Sox can do. They did make a move. They made a move for the Pirates pitcher. I can't remember the name. Kennedy. Yeah. So all three of them have made news now. So
yeah, and I think you're going to see Boston still make another move for another starting pitcher. Kennedy. That's somebody, and again, I think I talked about it when we went over that trade. I'm a little surprised at how much they gave up for him. I don't know if he's really worth giving up as much as they did based on his recent performance. So I think you're going to see them still go after trying to get another starting pitcher to get into that rotation. Their offense has been really cooking. We've talked about second baseman James LeBon there and Mookie Betts and all those guys. So I could see them still adding another solid starting pitcher to that rotation.
Now, I just pulled up Kennedy's stats for Boston so far. He's actually he's started 2 games for them so far. Because remember, I think he got injured like right when he got traded.
Yeah,
But so far, his FIP is really nice. His FIP is under 3. He's just gotten a little bit unlucky with an ERA of 5.4. But so we'll keep an eye on Kennedy to see if he can do well in Boston. His WAR is technically already better than what it was in Pittsburgh after 2 starts. So we'll see if Kennedy can keep that up for Boston, because that's going to be, like you said, that pitching is going to be a key for Boston down the stretch, because their offense is good. Pitching, that's the question mark. So,
yeah,
speaking of really good hitting and really good pitching, let's talk about our June award winners
yes.
for the month. Our players of the month. Let me get to the first one. It's filtering again. You guys get to watch me navigate through OOTP. So, first one we'll talk about the best batters of the month. And you know him, you love him. Jobu maybe sometimes loves him, sometimes doesn't. But that is Seattle Mariners right fielder Pedro Serrano with the player of the month for the American League. He hit 385 with 10 home runs, 21 RBIs, 21 runs scored. He is still a force at the plate. For the season, he is batting 329, 53 RBIs, and 23 home runs. This dude is a stud. He is a perennial Triple Crown threat, and he's one of the lone bright spots in Seattle season this year. They're not playing well overall, but it's not because of Serrano.
Yeah, you're looking at a guy who he's essentially 2.5 seasons in to his major league career, and he's already got almost 120 home runs and almost 300 RBIs during that span, just putting up monster numbers. He continues to really shine. When he first was drafted and was coming up, we talked about how he was kind of coming to Eric Kelly's team. And Eric Kelly was really the face of the Mariners. I hate to say it, I think Pedro Serrano has taken over that mantle up there in the Northwest. He's really the face of that Mariners franchise now, and I continue to be amazed at the sluggers that they've got up there.
I'm curious now. How long does Kelly have on his current contract? I'm curious now. Oh, he's there for a long time. He's there for the next 6 seasons with a couple of team options at the end. Yeah, he's going to be there for a while. So they've got 2 faces. So yeah, that is your AL player of the month. And the NL, speaking of Triple Crown candidates, goodness gracious, Fernando Tatis Jr. is current. If the season ended today, he would have the Triple Crown. He is leading the NL in batting average, RBIs, and home runs. He is, for the month of June, he hit 356 with 13 home runs and 34 RBIs. The big reason why the Padres are in first place in the NL West is because of this man right here.
Yeah, you're looking at a guy who, again, essentially at the All-Star break has already set a career high in home runs. So he's already completely shattered what his career high was before. He's nearing his career high in RBIs. I think he's less than 20 away from that. He's just had a monster season so far. He already had won, the batter of the month for May. So he's got two months in a row. It's just been a phenomenal player for them.
He's literally what Juan Soto did last year for the Nationals. It's literally like Soto has disappeared and here comes Tatis. And
he's the type of talented guy that really could, even when they're struggling, he could potentially really carry that team a long way.
He has carried them this far. Right now they're struggling, but it's because of Tatis that they are in the lead right now in that division. And if he keeps up this pace, based on his current home run rate, he will be one short of 60 home runs. So we're on a 60 home run watch here for Tatis, and that would be really impressive because 60 home runs is not easy to get to, especially in this day and age of pitching the way it is. So congratulations to Tatis for that award. Let's move on to the pitchers of the month. And this is a little bit of a name I haven't even heard of this name before I saw his name on this award, and that is Chicago White Sox starting pitcher Denny Martinez for the month of June. Had 6 starts, went 4-0 with a 1.77 ERA and 22 strikeouts. That is pretty darn impressive.
Yeah, this I'll be honest with you. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but I really thought this was an underrated move by the White Sox in the offseason to pick up Denny Martinez. He's not going to have a 1.77 ERA for a huge extended period of time. But he was a little bit of a victim of kind of the numbers game in Pittsburgh, where Cody with the Pirates had just a lot of talented arms, and kind of wanted to get rid of a couple of them just so that he could recoup some other prospects and other folks there. But I thought Josh, the GM of the White Sox, made a great move picking him up for cheap, and in that ballpark of theirs, having a guy like Martinez who can keep the ball on the ground, who can limit his mistakes. That's the type of guy that can be an important part of your rotation.
Absolutely. And alongside him on the NL side, we mentioned him earlier as the illegal contract. Oops. But you can see why they want to make sure they lock this guy up. It's Mackenzie Gore of the San Diego Padres, who put up in 42 innings pitched, he held opponents to batting 160 and a 107 ERA for the month of June. He is currently 9-4 on the season. Another reason, look at this Padres team. They were hot in June, racked up both Player of the Month awards for both pitcher and hitter. Now they may have kind of cooled off a little bit since July started, but in the month of June, these two guys were on fire.
Yeah, and Gore, he's a good story because he's overcome a couple of really tough injuries in his career. He's always had the talent to be a really great pitcher. But I think a few years ago he had Tommy John surgery. A couple of seasons ago he missed almost all of the season with a torn rotator cuff. So the Padres have been really waiting for him to have a season where he's healthy and he can really put on a show. And that's what we're seeing right now. And so hopefully he can stay healthy. They just signed him to that extension you mentioned. At a pretty reasonable deal. 5 years, a little over $60 million. So pretty good rate there. So it's nice to see him, pitching well for this team after those tough injuries he's had in the past.
Mm-hmm. Now moving on to the rookies of the month. For the AL, we've got Toronto starting pitcher Donovan Graves, who logged 6 starts, a 1.69 ERA, 4-1 with 32 strikeouts. Now, to this point in the season, his overall numbers are not near like this. He had a not so good start to this season. Like even after this amazing month he had, he's still sitting at around in the mid 4s in the ERA. But you can't deny the amazing month that he had in the month of June.
Yeah, quite a turnaround, because when you look at his months of April and May, you see ERAs of 7.25 and 8.87. So dropping that down to go 4-1 with a 1.69 ERA there in June, it's quite a dramatic change for him. So hopefully, for a young guy, hopefully that means he can keep it up and finish the season strong as well.
Making the GM look smart, because most GMs would have probably sent him down to AAA by that point. Stuck with him and paid off in a big way in the month of June. And like you said, let's hope he can keep that up and not revert back to how he started the season. On the NL side, we've got first baseman Mark Diggs, who I believe is the brother of Joe Diggs, or he's related to Joe Diggs in some way. Is he brother? Do you know?
Brother, yeah.
Brother? Okay,
Joe's
I got that
bro.
right. All right, so I got that right. Oh, that's right. Joe's bro, Mark Diggs. Take a look at these stats for the month of June. Batting .458 with 9 home runs and 20 RBIs for the month of June. And that was his first month in the majors.
Yeah, very
He
impressive.
just got called up.
Exactly. And in reality, if not for the amazing month that Tatis had, I mean, you could easily have made an argument for Diggs being, NL hitter of the month, not just rookie of the month.
Like he's played in a month's worth of games. He has appeared in 27 games. He already has a 2.9 WAR. He's already hit 11 home runs, 26 RBIs, 6 doubles, and has walked 15 times. His OPS is an astronomical 1.395. And this is not just like first week of major league action. He sustained this for a month. Like honestly, at this point, how did he not win Player of the Month over Tatis? He's got better numbers than Tatis this month. But I mean, Tatis has been playing well all season. He just got called up, and even so, he wasn't really playing that well, like this well in the minors. He actually had a negative WAR in Double-A at the beginning of this season. But GM NC Pirate over there had faith in Mark Diggs, brought him up to the majors, and oh my goodness, can you have a better start to your career than this?
Yeah, makes you wonder, are there going to be any more Diggs brothers coming along that you or I could draft?
Oh yeah, is there like a third one? Like you got the 3 Molina brothers in MLB. Are we gonna have the 3 Diggs brothers? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my eye out for anybody named Diggs in the draft.
Watch someone else make someone like Diggs and it's just a cousin or something like that instead of another brother. like an estranged like second cousin twice removed kind of thing.
the outcast brother.
Yeah, it's like the Manning brothers. You got the third brother that didn't quite make the NFL.
Yeah, we should just create Cooper Diggs.
Cooper for the fun of. Oh, that's funny. No, but seriously though, obviously those kind of numbers are not really sustainable, but he's done it for a month so far. And he's now actually raised his average even further in the month of July. He's now up to 471 for his career average.
And that's a scary thought. Again, I mean, joking aside, that's a scary thought for those other teams in that NL East. If this was another bat that Nationals lineup has to go along with Jose Anthony, who's been tremendous this year, and of course Juan Soto.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, that lineup is it's starting to get up as scary as the batters the Mariners have with Serrano and Kelly and Pepe Clark over there. But those are our June awards. Congratulations to all those players. Let's see who wins the awards next month. I know we didn't plan for this. I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball at you, pun intended. We're about to hit the All-Star break. Do you think you have some players that might go into the All-Star game that we might not have been thinking at the beginning of the season? Maybe like 1 or 2 players that may have had a great season that no one has expected that will make their first All-Star appearance or something along those lines. I know I already have a player in my mind if you want me to go first.
I'll tell you somebody that has really surprised me, this year. We were talking earlier so much about the Orioles, but Michael Busch has just been tremendous for them. Again, he's a guy that was kind of a late bloomer, somebody that kind of bounced around to several teams. I think even last year Baltimore picked him up on the waiver wire from Miami.
Yep.
But he's right up there in the leaderboard. With all of the big batting categories. He's just had a tremendous start to the season. So he's somebody that could be headed to the All-Star game there, and if not, could definitely be high up on the snub list. If he doesn't make it.
And I will say the player I was thinking of is actually going to be competing at the same position in the same league, and that is Chicago White Sox first baseman Joey Best. He has also had a surprising start to his career in Chicago. He's a rookie this year. He was acquired in the Matt Wallner deal with the Cardinals last year. He is off to a great start. He's leading the team with 24 home runs, batting .291 and a 2.4 WAR. So I think he is one of our sleeper candidates to make the All-Star game. But yeah, he and Bush both can make cases for that. Maybe one of them ends up getting snubbed because you already have a lot of other great first basemen in the AL. So one of them might be the odd man out here, but both of them could definitely make a case for the All-Star game.
Go ahead. I was going to say, and if you look at the National League, we'll get to our power ranking stuff later on where we're talking about some surprising teams. But one of the guys that's really helped lead the Cubs' resurgence is Tank Espelin. Playing the shortstop position there. He got a little bit of a taste of the action toward the second half or at the end of last season, but he's really come on strong for them in the leadoff spot. Played pretty solid at shortstop, hitting well. I think he's a guy that could make his way there.
Yeah, he's batting over 300 and now has over a 400 slugging percentage, which a slugging percentage of that high is pretty good for your leadoff hitter. Now, a lot of it has to do with his batting average already being over 300, but not only that, he's apparently a leader in the clubhouse at the young age of, 24. So not only is he good on the field, he's also good for that locker room and definitely leading the Cubs' resurgence right now. I'm trying to think through who could be a dark horse from the NL. I only had that one player pop up from my head in the AL because a lot of your league leaders are some of the people that you expected to be there. I it's because he's my player. I have to shout him out. Pitcher Jeremy Frank, the rookie that we signed from the independent league that came out of nowhere, is having a fantastic season, having never pitched a pitch in the minor leagues, jumping straight to the major leagues. He is pitching to a tune of a 2.88 ERA. He is striking out over 8 batters per 9. Only has allowed under a home run per 9 and keeping his walks under 3. A 2.3 WAR for the season. Very, very strong start. At one point led the league in ERA. Had a couple of like his last start most recently against Milwaukee did not go well. He gave up 6 runs in 4 2/3 innings. But other than that, he has been fantastic for my Cardinals rotation. And another pitcher I'll highlight that's not on my team for you over in New York for the Mets, who are surprisingly keeping pace at the top of the NL East. This is one of the teams we thought were going to finish at the bottom half. Is what is it? Is it Mason Engler? I think. Yeah, he's up there in the league leaders in ERA with a 2.62 ERA. So Mason Engler might be one of those guys that you could see sneak into the All-Star game. Maybe not quite because you have to compete with some elite pitching over there in the NL. But Mason Engler is definitely having a strong season. Could make a case to make that All-Star team.
Yeah, I think those are both great ones to point out. Jeremy Frank. I think we kind of learned from the Ben Spears experiment with Tampa Bay that maybe that guy who kind of comes out of nowhere, he may have some struggles at first before he really gets his legs under him. But Frank, he jumped right in and he's been great from the jump. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him there in the All-Star game and this be one of the first of many.
Yeah, I'm very, very pleased. Actually, pleased would be an understatement. I'm ecstatic with the performance that he's had, especially since my trade acquisition in the offseason, Jonathan Stever, has not quite worked out the way I had hoped.
Yeah, that was a move I really thought was a good one, and he started out pitching pretty well, but maybe he's gone through a little bit of a rough patch. I think he'll turn it around.
His last start was a complete game shutout, so let's hope he can keep that up. But he's still, his overall numbers do not look good from what we ended up giving up, because one of the pitchers we gave up, another guy who's a young pitcher over there in Chicago, one of the guys we traded back in the Stever deal was Kevin Abel, who struggled in St. Louis last year. Was moving up and down, but he's actually pitching in the mid 3s for his ERA with a 6-3 record so far. So he's found himself in Chicago after he had to struggle to start his career in St. Louis and was moved in the Stever trade. So maybe not all-star game worthy, but he's definitely proving himself a valuable piece of that Chicago rotation and a big part of why they're competing in the AL Central right now. But we're looking forward to looking at the full All-Star game participants. We'll recap who the All-Star members of each team were on our next podcast. Once I think we're going to be right at the All-Star break, so we'll know who the teams are before the game happens. So we'll definitely touch on those. But those are some underdog candidates that might make an appearance in the All-Star game. I'm sorry if I threw you for a loop throwing in a topic we hadn't discussed before, but I think we both answered it pretty well. I didn't even think about it either. And then on the injury front, we didn't really have a lot of actually, we didn't really have any big names that ended up on the injured list. We'll just highlight some of the long-term injuries. They held their roles on their teams, but it's not like someone that's going to be like a major detriment to their lineup. We had Matt Tabor in Arizona out 2 to 3 months with a torn bicep. Oakland second baseman Nick Senzel 4 weeks with a sprained ankle. Phillies reliever Riley Thompson out 3 months. Cleveland center fielder Levi Usher out 6 weeks with a fractured ulna. But the main piece of injury news we wanted to cover was actually someone coming back from injury. We mentioned earlier how Milwaukee Brewers starting rotation had the injury bug. Specifically, their ace Walker Buehler is out for a while. But they're getting a key piece of their rotation back, and that is starter Chris Flexen, the human white flag.
Yeah, he is he's back in that rotation. You know, he's made one start so far since coming back, helped them pick up a win against the Dodgers. You know, he's somebody that could definitely help them stay there in contention there in the NL Central. Again, they're still going to need some of the other guys to step back up, especially to make up for the Walker Buehler injury. But definitely good news for Brewers fans to at least get Flexen back there, get another veteran, with a track record back in that rotation to maybe help stabilize things.
Yeah, they might be one of those teams you see making a move for another starting pitcher, though, because they are now, like we mentioned earlier, they're now in third place in the NL Central. The
Yep.
Cubs have overtaken them for that second place spot. Now they are in a wild card spot, but they've got a lot of teams on their tail right now. So they may be a team that makes a trade for a starting pitcher, especially trying to handle the loss of Bueller. So it's good. You hope Flexen can fill that role so they don't have to be as desperate for a starter. But keep an eye on the Brewers to be making some moves here at the deadline. All right, it's that time, the beautiful time that is our power rankings, and we do have listed out how the teams moved from last week to this week. So a little bit more stable this time. So I'm going to go ahead and start our top 10 off with a team that has yet to be on my top 10 rankings, and that is the surging, trade heavy Baltimore Orioles at 45 and 37. They have been playing very well lately. Like we mentioned earlier, they had a struggle to the start of their season, but they have put together a bunch of solid months after their first month of struggles. They may still be 6 back of the division in the AL East, but they are right in the thick of the AL wildcard hunt. They are playing some strong baseball, including, I believe, they had a sweep. They had a sweep over one of the divisions. I believe it was San
The
Diego.
Padres, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they ended up sweeping the Padres. Now they kind of floundered at the end, losing 3 out of 4 to Seattle, but they swept. Not only that, they also swept the Rays. No, actually, let's take it back a step further. They had 3 sweeps in a row. They swept 2 games home against San Diego, 3 games home against Tampa Bay, and then 3 games again at San Diego. So they took 5. They went 5-0 against San Diego this sim. So they are playing some strong baseball right now. Like I said, they kind of fell off a little bit at the end against Seattle. They might have been a little bit higher if they won the series against them. But they are looking very strong right now, and look out. They are making the trades to fill those holes, as we mentioned earlier. So they could start rising up these rankings here soon.
Yeah, I almost put the Orioles in my 10 spot. I came very close to putting them there. I went with a different team that's the newcomer for me, and that's the Chicago Cubs. Um, you know, they have been a real big surprise so far this year. I think we all kind of looked at their season at the beginning as a rebuilding year where they were going to try to play some young guys. But we mentioned Tank Espelin just a few minutes ago. He's been strong. Kent Herbeck Jr. has really taken over in the middle of that order as their top guy. Danny White, Jackie Roberts, tons of young players there, and this is no fluke really for the Cubs. If you look back at their record since May 1st, they're 38 and 24. That's a pretty extended period of time where they've played some really good baseball, and I would not be surprised to see them hang in it throughout the course of the rest of the season.
Yeah, I actually debated between the Cubs and the Orioles at number 10. I think you have the Orioles just outside your top 10, like I have the Cubs just outside my top 10. I mentioned this earlier. I put the Orioles there because of their strong performance against the Padres, specifically one of the top teams in the league. But I mean, the Cubs took 2 out of 3 from the Cardinals in this sim, so they're no slouches either. So I definitely agree. The Cubs definitely deserve some recognition. They just fell outside of my top 10. But who you got at number 9?
So at number 9, I've got the Washington Nationals. They're on a little bit of a winning streak here, winning 5 in a row. They actually just swept 4 from my Cincinnati Reds, so a little bit peeved there from my standpoint at the Nationals there. But again, we talked earlier about Mark Diggs, him coming up and giving them a boost in the month of June. Juan Soto is still there, still as dangerous as ever, even though his numbers aren't quite up to his MVP numbers just yet. But I think they're going to get there. But Jose Anthony has been amazing at the hot corner, great hitter there, and I think if they can address their bullpen a little bit, that maybe they're a team that goes out and makes a deal to really try to bolster that bullpen. This could be a team that really has a lot ahead of itself.
The old phrase, great minds think alike. I've also got the Washington at number 9 for basically the same reasons as you said. They're still leading the NL East, albeit by only a few games, but they are still doing it. I kept them off of my list last time, but this week they made a better performance, spearheaded by our rookie of the month. Probably should have been player of the month, Mark Diggs. If he keeps that up, look out. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
All right, number 8 for me is the Chicago White Sox, and I've kept them at the same spot here. They are staying consistent right now. They've been making a little bit of ground on Detroit recently, but they're not overpowering people. They're playing well, but they still have some work to do to catch up to Detroit. They're right in the thick of the AL wild card. They're playing well. I mentioned some of their young players who are a little bit sour to say, former Cardinals, and Kevin Abel and Joey Best. He's got a lot of we've made a couple of trades. He's got a lot of former Cardinals over there that are helping him build that team over there in Chicago, and they're doing a pretty good job of it right now.
Yeah, they've been really outstanding. I've got them at my number 8 spot too. Again for a lot of the same reasons you had. Right now they're in a tough spot, being in the same division as Detroit, but they're definitely a team on the rise from my standpoint. I could see them, really making noise the rest of the season. And then, looking ahead to the number 7 spot, I've got the Angels there. The defending World Series champs. They, Tom, the GM of the Angels, he's got them, right there in the thick of things again with that squad. They had made the trade we talked about earlier, sending Jahmai Jones over there to the Orioles, but they've still got some talent in that outfield there. They've got a really good bullpen, really deep bullpen there that they can rely on. And the spot earlier in the season that was really tough for them, the rotation, I think they're getting to the point where they're getting that stabilized a little bit. Asa Lacy has come over and pitched really well since they've gotten him from the Dodgers. Greg Briggs, has been pitching fantastic. So, assuming that Shohei Ohtani and DeGrom kind of get back in their groove, this team could be contending for a World Series yet again.
Yeah, I agree. And I have the exact same team as you have there listed at my number 7 spot. They're up 2 spots for me this week. And they had kind of a weird sim. They played Houston twice. And both times the home team swept them. So in Houston got the sweep. In LA got the sweep in 3 games each. But in between that, they rattled off 4 straight against Oakland in a 4-game sweep. So they beat the team that they needed to beat. They split against their division rival. And actually, Houston was one of the teams I dropped out of my top 10 because they, on the whole, did not have a very good sim. Just outside the top 10 for me. Probably I put them behind the Cubs at number 12 specifically. But the Angels had a little bit of a stronger sim. They ended up finishing off the sim, losing 2 out of 3 against Boston, which is not necessarily horrible because Boston, you're going to see he's near the top of both of our power rankings. But number 7 so far, they're still chasing Texas in that division, and we'll have to see if they can regain the World Series form that we saw them in last year. Number 6 for me are the Tampa Bay Rays, down 1 spot from number 1. They had a solid sim. Nothing crazy happened for them. They're still chasing the Boston Red Sox in that division. Over their last 10, they've kind of struggled though. They've gone 3-7 over their last 10, which flipped what Boston's done at 7-3. So they're still only 3.5 games back. So they're still right up there with Boston. But they did slip a little bit this sim. But this team is still talented top to bottom, so I don't imagine that this is going to be something that they sustain for a long period of time. I expect them to turn this around and keep competing with Boston all season.
Yeah, and for me at 6, I've got the Padres. I've got them in the number 6 spot. It's funny, we talked about the players of the month for June, and the Padres had both the hitter of the month and the pitcher of the month. And that stands to reason. They were 18-9 in the month of June, but now here we are. They're on a 7-game losing streak. Here, and all of a sudden you're starting to wonder a little bit about them. Are they they need to guard against getting a little complacent with the way that division is right now. Could that be what they're kind of experiencing right now is a little bit of a lull. I still think they're a really good team, obviously, with Tatis playing like we've talked about, and Asher Kim, continuing to be a big part of that lineup. But it'll be interesting to see how they try to bounce back from this little skid as they head into the second half of the season. And, can they go ahead and truly put that division away, or are they going to allow some of those teams to get back in it? And then, for me at the 5 spot, I've got your St. Louis Cardinals in the 5 spot there.
We're moving up. Moving up.
Moving up. I think again, I think that was a case where your team went through maybe a little bit of that lull where they had kind of started to run away with that NL Central division and ran into a little bit of a tough spot.
It wasn't a little bit; it was an entire month of a rough spot. That month of May was brutal for us.
Yeah, so I know you're looking to try to see if you can boost your offense a little bit for the second half of the season, but I still think that pitching staff and the strength that you've got there, in the rotation with Jeremy Frank, like we talked about. Dakota Hudson has still pitched really well this year. Tanner Burns, Jack Flaherty, and then the strength that you've got in the bullpen. I think that's still going to be able to carry you, but I definitely think to get back to that point where we would consider St. Louis one of the really top tier elite teams, that offense is really going to have to step up, whether it's the guys that you have there now or whether it's making a big splash move to get a big bat in there.
Yeah, I mean, your points are valid, and I'll touch on them because they are on my top 10. So I'll touch on my team when we get there. But my number 5, you already mentioned them, are the Padres, and oh man, they had a rough time of it. They, like you mentioned, they're on a 7-game losing streak. But have you seen what teams they've lost to on this 7-game losing streak?
Yeah. I mean,
5 out of the 7 games, they lost 2 of them to the Reds, your team, who are at the bottom of the NL Central, and they got swept by the New York Yankees, who are 4th in the AL East and under 500. And then sandwiched in between that, they lost a 2-game series, got swept by Baltimore, who's that's a contending team. That's understandable. But to lose 5 straight games with Baltimore in the middle, but to lose 5 games against the Reds and the Yankees, that's rough. That's why they were my number 1 team last week, but to see them lose to it's one thing to lose to teams at the bottom of the division. It's another to get swept by them. And getting swept by the Yankees. Now they did win a couple games in Cincinnati, but just lost the last 2 of that series. But to get swept by the Yankees, a team that's not really competing for a playoff spot right now, is at the end of a 7-game losing streak, is definitely got to be demoralizing for the Padres. So that's why I've got them falling to number 5. And at number 4, I'll go ahead and start talking about them again, are my Cardinals. I had them moving up above the Padres because of how bad the Padres losses were. Um, Now, the Cardinals, they're not looking as strong as they did at the beginning of the season, but they're turning around what was their issue in this in the tumultuous May that they had, and that was their offense. Recently, their offense has definitely turned things around. Recently, including they took 2 out of 3 against Milwaukee, including a dramatic 11-10 win, and I believe it was in extra innings. No, bottom of the ninth comeback, 3 runs in the bottom of the ninth. I knew it was something like that. But their offense has picked it up recently, which was the main reason why the Cardinals went through such a rough stretch in May and June. It was actually, I keep saying May. It was June that was the bad month for us. It started at the end of May, but June as a whole was a horrible month for us. But we've got a couple of key series coming up against Pittsburgh and Milwaukee. 4 games in Pittsburgh, 3 in Milwaukee to end out leading into the All-Star break. So if we can win both of those series, we'll be in a good position moving forward. Like you mentioned, still looking to make a move. We're not looking at this team behind us, like the Cubs and the Brewers and the Pirates are surging. They all could make a run at us if we keep struggling like we did in June. So we're looking to make a move to try to boost us up into that to the point where we don't have to worry about the teams behind us, because I don't want to have to keep looking over my shoulder the entire rest of the season, because I'm definitely doing so right now. They are right behind us. So that's who I've got at number 4.
Yeah, my 4 spot, I've got the Tampa Bay Rays there. You talked about them a little bit earlier. Um, I still look at them as a team that, maybe, top to bottom, it probably challenges with the Tigers for kind of the top, roster, top to bottom, or most complete team. They got a really good starting pitching, good bullpen, a lot of variety on offense. I still think it's going to be interesting to see how some of the young players that Charles has brought up are going to perform here. Ham Porter at the catching position is going to get a little bit of time there with Tyler Stevenson. Doc Luger, big time starting pitching prospect, is going to get some starts. Steve Fowler in the bullpen, where they already have a pretty stacked bullpen from top to bottom. So it's going to be interesting how those young guys fit in. But you look at that lineup: Austin Meadows, Wander Franco, Fritz Flaherty. It's a real challenge for anybody taking them on. I still think eventually they're going to overtake the Red Sox and win that division. But
bold prediction.
You got to play the games.
That's true. That's definitely a bold prediction. All right, so who you got at number 3 then?
So number 3, I've got the Texas Rangers. They've pretty consistently here over the last few weeks been sitting at the top of that AL West, which again we knew going into the season that's a tall order for anybody to stand atop that division with the talented teams there. But we've seen the Astros take a little bit of a step backward. The Angels have been a little bit up and down, but still solid, and the Rangers have kind of held pat there at the top of the division for most of this stretch. Again, they've got some talent all over the board. I think their pitching again is still what's holding them in that top spot. I think ideally they'd probably like to get a little bit more offense going, whether it's some of the guys kind of performing a little bit more up to the back of their baseball cards, so to speak, or maybe addressing that with a trade. But right now their pitching continues to carry them at the top of that division.
Yeah, I mean, I've also got Texas at number 3, but I'm going to be a little bit more critical of them. They did not have a good sim. In the sim, they did not win any of their series. They split a 2-game series against Cincinnati. They lost 2 out of 3 against Boston. They lost 3 out of 4 against New York, and they lost 2 out of 3 against Minnesota. I mean, look at the New York Yankees all of a sudden beating these top division teams. They sweeping the Padres and taking 3 out of 4 against Texas. What in the world's going on there? Maybe another dark horse coming back into wild card race. Who knows? But yeah, this is not a good sim for Texas. The only reason that they're still at the top of their division is because Astros went so this sim, and the LA Angels were far enough behind that they didn't overtake them with their strong sim. Now they, like you mentioned, they still have the talent, but they have a rough stretch of games going into the All-Star break: 3 against Boston and 4 against Minnesota. Who Minnesota just took 2 out of 3 against them. So we'll see if the Rangers can bounce back before the All Star break. I'm interested to see if what moves, if any, the Rangers will make. Maybe another starting pitcher, maybe some offense. Who knows? They are known for their speed. So we'll see what happens with Texas, but they definitely did slip a little bit this sim for me, falling to number 3. Number 2 for me are the Detroit Tigers, the leaders of the AL Central, sitting at 49-33. Uh, we kind of mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that it was a really strange sim for a lot of top of the division teams, including San Diego playing poorly, the Texas playing poorly. Detroit is another team that played poorly. They are 4-6 out of their last 10 games. They're on a 3-game losing streak currently. But they are still sitting atop of the AL East, or AL East, AL Central. Mixing myself up. But they did just get swept by Tampa Bay. Or no, not swept. They lost 3 out of 4 to Tampa Bay, who Tampa Bay needed that bounce back because they were also not playing well at the end of their sim. But I mean, the Detroit is still playing overall. They're still playing very strong. They've still got a lot of great numbers when you look at their rankings across the AL. They're still top 5 in almost every single category, minus something, minus speed and home runs. But they're a strong team. They're on a little bit of a dip lately. Chicago's trying to make a run to bring themselves back up, but they kind of went so this sim, so they didn't take advantage too much. So we'll see if Detroit can right the ship. It's another team you'll be interested to see what they'll do in terms of any trades. But right now, I still have them as my number 2 team in the power rankings.
Yeah, I've got them number 2 also. You touched on a lot of it. We have heard that they are looking to potentially make a big move. Maybe a high impact starting pitcher, or potentially a big bat in their outfield. So and they definitely have some talent throughout their minor league system that they could shed to try to address that. It has been an interesting stretch for them because if you look, in the month of June they're 14-13, and I would have never guessed that without having looked that up, because it felt like they were still playing pretty solid baseball, and really kind of keeping control of that AL Central division. But they have had a little bit of an up and down last month or so. Again, though, I think sometimes you just take a look at that talent roster, and you got K-Bear Ruiz, Bobby Witt Jr. playing really well, Cedric Mullins. I know Felix Matthews hasn't had the season that they were maybe hoping he would, and he's maybe in a spot where he's having to find a position again, or maybe needing to retool a little bit. But they still like I said before, I feel like they and Tampa Bay probably have the most complete rosters of anybody at this point. So I did still keep them number 2, but definitely want to keep an eye on them to see what the second half holds, and if they can kind of kick it back into high gear.
Absolutely.
And then number 1 spot, we've had a few spots here on this top 10 where you and I have been on the same page, and I think this is going to be another one. But I've got the Red Sox here in the number 1 spot. Their best record in the league, the only team with 50 wins at this point. Talked a little bit earlier about them possibly making a move on the pitching side to kind of go along with their offense, but they've got a lot of guys playing really well. James LeBlond at second base. Kamish Elby may not like to see his creative player dominating his universe the way he has been, but he's been really outstanding in this first half of the season. As a hitter, I mean, just really going crazy with the bat. He's always provided great defense, but really hitting the ball well. Again, Mookie Betts, the timeless one out there in the outfield, hitting well. Danny Diaz, continuing to progress as a hitter in the middle of that order. So I think the offense is definitely there. They're a team that can really cause some damage on offense. But I think it's going to be interesting to see if Philly is able to make a move like we talked about for the pitching side, because at the end of the day, that may be the spot that holds them back from really making a deep run unless they can really get some better pitching.
Yeah, I think pitching is going to be the key for them. I do have them listed as number one as well. Like you mentioned, the only team that has hit the 50 win mark so far this season. But you look at their rotation and you wonder how this team has the best record in the majors. All of the people in their starting rotation, the lowest ERA of the people listed currently in their rotation is a 4.39 ERA. Chris Sale is close to 6. Everyone else is in like mid to upper 4s. And you have to we kind of talked about this earlier this season when the Colorado Rockies were doing this all offense no pitching approach. We were wondering if that was going to be sustainable, and you have to wonder how long the Boston Red Sox are going to get away with giving up 4 runs per 9 innings from their starting rotation. Now I believe they've got Kennedy is going to be coming back from the injured list here soon. He's still got a couple weeks with a strained oblique, but everyone else is just this pitching has to step up if they're going to keep this up. Now their offense, as we mentioned, has carrying. They are first in runs, first in average, first in on base percentage, and as a result, first in OPS. And they're first in base running. So they have overtaken Detroit as stats wise the best offense in the American League, and that has carried them to this record. But as we asked with Colorado earlier this season, how long can they keep that up? Because we saw how fast Colorado crashed after their really strong start to the season offensively that carried them to a bunch of wins. Their pitching could not sustain that. So you have to think Boston's going to be really aggressive in the trade market for a pitcher if they're maybe even 2 pitchers to fill out that rotation to help them keep this going. But as it stands, they are the best team in Major League Baseball right now, and their offense is the main reason why. Their pitching at this point is doing just enough to keep them going. But as we saw this sim, anything can happen. We had so many of our division leaders have poor 2-week stretches, making this a lot more exciting as we look forward to the All-Star break, the trade deadline, and then the playoff run down the stretch. So those are our top 10 power rankings. Any more thoughts or comments about our lists here?
No, I think again, a lot of these we had in teams in the similar spots. I think it's going to be again, it's going to be interesting to see what the next 2 to 3 weeks in sim time have to offer, because with the All-Star break, obviously you have the trade deadline just around the corner. And that could really leave us with some teams looking much different as we get to the end of July and head into the last 2 months of the season.
Absolutely. It's going to be, this is the most exciting time of the season, apart from the actual playoffs, is All-Star break trade deadline, where, especially right now, where there are a lot of divisions, like we mentioned, there is only one division that has more than a 4-game lead over second place, and that's the NL West, with the Padres holding, I think it was 6-game lead over Arizona, or 9. It was 6 or 9.
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood. It was pretty strong.
I'm pulling it up. I need to have my numbers yet. It's 7 games. It's a 7-game lead over Arizona, but all the other divisions have at least a 3.5 game, at most 3.5 games. In fact, the only other division. Most divisions have 2 teams within 6 games, apart from the NL West and the AL Central. So this is exciting time for baseball in the eMLB in the middle of 2025. Can't wait to see how the trade deadline shakes out. What teams are going to get some value back for players that they're selling? What teams are going to prepare themselves for a playoff run? And also, we've got that draft coming up to see what teams are going to be doing with their teams in the future, especially I think San Francisco has the number 1 pick in this draft. So it'll be interesting to see what direction these teams will go to try to prepare them for the future. But that will do it for us today on the eMLB podcast. Thank you once again for tuning in. Make sure to tune in this Wednesday for the eMLB first year player draft, especially if you have a community created player that is participating. You can sit in the green room and wait for your name to be called as a member of the eMLB system. Wait to see what team is going to value you as a pick and potential future for your franchises. But thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. We will be back next week. We're going to be back quite a few times over the next couple weeks for special interviews, special trade deadline podcast. We'll do a draft podcast as well as our regular weekly podcast. But until next time, have a great evening, guys, and take care. Back with you is myself, AnjouPays, and my co-host, Jay Rollins. I keep mixing between JR and Jay Rollins, and I just couldn't decide which one to start with. Hi, JR. How are you? Let's take a look at the standings as I realized I wasn't on the right screen to start this recording, but that's okay. We're just going to go with it. This is professional. Do you just want to start over? Can we start over, please?
Let's do it.
I wasn't even on the right screen to start.